another episode of Pink Perspectives powered by the Pink Tabletop. I'm your host, Dana Johnson, and joining me today for our second installment of a Mother's Tribute in the month of May is Bonnie Anderson. Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome. Glad to be here.
So it is a pleasure to be able to have Bonnie to have a seat at the table with me today as we celebrate women who have been influential in their work-life balance, from their personal to their philanthropic to the community engaging things that they do. And I am just fresh off of our lobbying days in Washington, D.C. and had the conversation with Bonnie and asked her if she would share her story and join me for a seat at the table to talk about all the wonderful things that she is doing. So I thank you for that.
Sure.
So one thing that I wanted to highlight is we just celebrated Mother's Day, and I was fortunate enough that my child really understood what was important to me, and he knows that I love books, and he knows that I'm a fan of Mama Tina and Beyonce. So I want to just read this quote because it reminds me of you, Bonnie. So one of the things that Tina mentioned is a life story like no other, enlightening, entertaining, surprising, empowering, and a testament to the world making power of Black motherhood. And that is what I see within you.
Okay.
Can you share a little bit about just your story as a mother?
Sure. Well, I'm here in Milwaukee, but I actually was raised in Mississippi.
Okay.
I went from Mississippi with 3 children. I moved to South Bend, Indiana. Never in my wildest dream would I've ever thought that I would be here doing what I'm doing now.
Wow.
Because I was busy taking care of my children, making sure that they went to school, went to college, did what they had to do. So I went to a funeral, and this is a true story. I went to a funeral and met the love of my life.
Oh.
Moved to Milwaukee. My children then were all in college, so it was easy for me to move. But I had one little 10-year-old that came along with me. We moved to Milwaukee. My husband's a plumber, still has a plumbing business. So we resettled here. I was here for 1 year and was diagnosed with breast cancer. And I thought my world fell apart. My children were in college, they were off doing their thing, and I had this little 10-year-old. She went through everything with me. She understood breast cancer. She even tried researching things, and at that time in 1993, there was nothing to be able to find about breast cancer. So she went to all my treatments with me, went to all my appointments, so she understood exactly what I was going through. I had a pretty good idea anyway. So when I was diagnosed, everything for me went relatively smooth. I had good support. I had the insurance. So my sister was a nurse practitioner. She came down to help me through things. So everything for me went pretty smooth. But then I was invited to participate in an African American breast cancer support group that was just getting off the ground. And that's when I had a rude awakening that most women did not have benefits that I did. Most women had stronger challenges. It was really pretty sad. So I felt it was my moral obligation to do something about this. My daughter, who's by now, she's probably about 12 years old, she actually met a girl in her school whose mother also had breast cancer. So she came to me right away and she says, Mom, I think her mother's really ill, So I met with this young lady, and I realized then that in our African American community, women were not educated at all about breast cancer. This lady was actually a breast receptionist for the Milwaukee Public School. And she had to refuse, she didn't have to, but she refused treatment because she said she couldn't go to treatment because she had to work to support her children. She did not understand that if she did not get treatment, that she would die. And she was 36 years old, and she did. So I realized then, education. Our women have to be educated about breast health. And I kept thinking, what can I do to educate these women? I got to do something. So I met with Dr. Walker at Alta Medical College, and he and I got to talk, and I realized that he was having the same problems. That he didn't have a lot of, some women would come to him and not return. Because once they got the diagnosis, like, can't do it. And I think these ladies just didn't understand. They didn't understand. So what happened was, from there, they began to send women to our African American support group. We started off with like 4 women, and now our list probably has about 400 women in it. They don't always come to support group meetings, but they know we're there if they need anything. So the support group was moving pretty good.
Mhm.
And I thought, okay, I've got to figure out how to educate people. That kept pressing in my mind. I had to help these ladies because we were getting ladies in late stage diagnoses, women who still didn't understand how important it was to have mammograms, all those kind of things. So I'm thinking, now we got to do something. We have to do something. So I started an organization called Nurses Affecting Change. And what we do is we go into the community, to apartment complexes, to churches, to PTO. We've been going to PTO meetings to make sure that African American women and Hispanic women were educated relative to breast health and breast cancer, because they were not. Even 15 years after my diagnosis, we were still running into ladies who had late stages, and they did not have to have late stages. They just didn't understand how important it was, because all too often, so many times, African American women are so busy, as you know, taking care of your families, doing what you need to do, because the bills have to get paid.
Exactly.
If you're not married and you have 3 children, the bills have to get paid.
Exactly.
So the last person you think about going for a mammogram is yourself. The last person you think about going to showers and checking yourself is yourself. You're busy checking your children. So with Nurse Affecting Change, what we do, we try to correct that.
Yes.
And we have gotten better. We have women now that actually call me and says, is it time for my mammogram? And she may be 50 years old. I said, sure, it's time for your mammogram. You just had it last year. You know, so it's important. It's just so important. And ABCD, the way that I ran to ABCD, when I was diagnosed personally, I saw Melody Wilson. This is a true story. I saw Melody Wilson on TV.
Okay.
And she was talking about, she had breast cancer and she had this, and she mentioned Dr. Walker, and he was her doctor. I didn't realize that because I had already met Dr. Walker. So I called her at the radio TV station. She answered the phone. And so I got to talking to her, and so she was my first actual mentor.
I love that.
Yeah, she was my actual first mentor. So I got to talking to her, and one day I had a call from her, and she says, we started this organization. It was probably a year, no, 2 years, maybe 2 years after my diagnosis.
Okay.
I don't remember what year ABCD started. But she asked me would I be interested in becoming a mentor. So I was not in the first mentor class, but I was in the second mentor class that ABCD had. And I've been working with ABCD ever since, because again, that's an organization that African Americans need to take advantage of more.
Yes.
We still, the education for African American women, I've been doing this for 33 years. We are still behind, and I don't know if listening to ourselves, we don't listen to ourselves. I think what we tend to do is stay too busy, you know, not realizing that if we took better care of ourselves, we could then take better care of everything else around us. But we're still behind. ABCD does have some African American mentors and mentees, but I'm sure it could be more. I'm sure it could be more. I'm sure it could be more. I also worked for a long time with the American Cancer Society, and I still have a deep love for the American Cancer Society. I was a reach and recovery volunteer.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I was reach and recovery volunteer. I had my breast cancer, and I'm in the hospital. And in walks this African American woman, and she says, the American Cancer Society and your doctor sent me here to talk with you and to show you exercises. And I was still like in a fog, because I just had a mastectomy. You know, I'm sick. And here this lady comes with this big brown boob showing me how to replace it. It's like, whoa. But I worked with them for years. I'm probably jumping around there, and I apologize.
No, it's okay.
It's just things that I'm thinking I haven't thought about in a long, long time.
Exactly.
A long, long time. I mean, so many things. But right now, we're still out here. I have now some nurse practitioners that work with me. So we go into the communities to make sure we go to homeless shelters. We go to homeless shelter at least twice a month. We go to City on the Hill. It's an outreach clinic for underserved population.
Okay.
We go there twice a month, trying to educate African American women on breast cancer, breast health and breast cancer. Now, the way I got involved with advocacy work is because I knew, you know, my mind is always working. It's always working. So I knew that there was a lot more to breast health and breast cancer than what I was doing.
Okay.
So I got invited to attend a meeting with the Wisconsin Breast Cancer Coalition. That really was where I needed to be, because that was like the epitome of finally trying to figure out how to rid the world of breast cancer.
So like almost coming full circle from where
Yes,
you
it's like,
started.
this is what we need to do. Because
Okay.
without research, you cannot cure this disease.
Exactly.
You know, without research, you cannot cure this disease. So from Wisconsin Breast Cancer Coalition. I worked with them for a while. I served as the president of the board for quite a while. And Kathleen Harris invited me to the National Breast Cancer Coalition.
So before we go into that, I
Okay.
want to just stop you for just 1 second. You talk a little bit about your advocacy with Nurses Affecting Change and the community engagement things that you're doing, and then how you became acquainted with Melody Wilson with ABCD. How do you balance all that with, you said with just like with the 3 kids and with your, you know, your love, family and support and things, because you've been married for how long, Bonnie?
almost 35 years.
Which is a beautiful accomplishment in itself,
Like
and
so.
to have your kids be so successful and you still looking just as young and fresh
Well, I'm
yourself.
not,
So
well, thank you
how
for
do you
that.
get
Well, you
to
know what?
that
You know what
with the
though?
balance?
Actually, so when I was diagnosed, I was 40 years old,
Okay.
going on 41. So my 3 older children were already somewhat close to being adults, and my youngest child. So by the time I actually had an opportunity to start working in some of these venues, my kids were pretty large kids,
Okay.
and they celebrate me.
Nice.
You know, they celebrate me. I'm sure they're shocked at all the things that I have been able to do. And it's not that they pat me on my back or anything. They know that I'm doing what I want to do because I know that there's such a need. I mean, I'm just a busy kind of person. I'm busy in my church. I'm just a busy kind of person. So my family accepts that. And my husband, bless his heart, he's the wind beneath my wing. He just makes sure that everything that, if Bonnie needs this for her mission, she's going to have that.
I love it.
You know, whatever is going on, you know, he'll drop what he's doing to make sure, because he understands the importance of it. You know, he understands the importance
And that's
of
the
it.
key. If
Yeah.
you have somebody that is your strong
Yeah.
backbone supporter, then you can still be all you can
You
be
can all you
and
can be.
more,
That's
because you
exactly
have that
Yeah.
in your life.
Because he understands that. So if he says, if I say I have a meeting in DC, okay, I'll get your ticket together. You know, so he really helps me in everything that I have to do. My family, my twin sister lives right next door to me.
Nice.
So anytime I have something to do, and she hops right in to make sure that everything works out for me. She'll water my garden or something if I'm out of town for 4 or 5 days. So no, I have such great support. That is why I make a point of giving back. Because my life is pretty easy, you know, and I'm blessed. And I thank God for that. My life is really blessed. So I have to make sure that I bless someone else.
And I love that for you, because it allows our viewers to be able to see that if you have a strong support system in your life, and it can be, like you said, from your children to your husband, or even your best girlfriends, or
Right.
people who are in your church, having that strong support system will allow you to be able to live the life and to be able to walk in your purpose and do the things that you're able to do.
Exactly.
And knowing that there are resources that are out there, like the organizations that you've been at a fortunate lifestyle to be affiliated with, to be able to give back. And it's important for them to be able to know that all those resources are there.
And they are. And I just, you know, I just wish that somewhere along the line, and we're getting better. African American women are getting better. But believe me, Dana, they're not there yet. When you think they're not there yet, you know, you have so many women who are in the underserved population who are still challenged daily, because that's all that they can keep in their minds. They have to take care of themselves first, but not physically take care of themselves. Take care of everything else, their environment, take care of everything else. And so it's sometimes it gets really challenging, but we just keep pushing ahead, because one of these days I'm gonna wake up and cancer's gonna be gone. There'll be no more breast cancer in this world. And that's the day I can take a breath, I can just breathe.
I love it. Let's take a moment to pause, and we'll be back with more with Bonnie Anderson.
Being diagnosed with breast cancer changes everything, and it happens every single day. Very quickly, patients and caregivers realize this is not just a medical journey. They've been dragged onto an emotional roller coaster. ABCD trains breast cancer survivors who have ridden that same ride and provide encouragement and understanding like no one else can. From diagnosis through treatment and beyond, all services are free and virtual.
And we're back. Thank you again, Bonnie, for that wealth of information, because it's so imperative that we make certain that our Black and brown sisters know that these are things and resources that are available to them. And you've been fortunate to be in so many spaces. If you could just share a little bit more about the things that you've been afforded to do on the national level that people don't realize, because like you mentioned, it's the legislative side that's going to help allow for all these things. We can be our boots on the ground, we can table events, we can do all the things, but legislatively if those things don't get accomplished, it halts a lot of the progress. So can you speak a little bit to that?
Sure. Well, when I first got involved with the Wisconsin Breast Cancer Coalition, I had never heard of the National Breast Cancer Coalition. When I was invited to the National Breast Cancer Coalition, that is when I realized that to eradicate breast cancer forever, we have to go farther than just screening and those kind of things. We have to go all the way to the table to make sure that there's research that's going to find a cure for breast cancer. So what I began to do, I joined the National Breast Cancer Coalition, became a member, and had my first opportunity to actually lobby on Capitol Hill as an advocate. I was afraid, for real, going into the offices, but as soon as I got over my fear, I began to realize that those folks in Washington, D.C. work for us. So after that, I had no problem understanding what needed to happen. That we need to convince these people that we have legislation that needs to be passed to help women who are facing breast cancer challenges, and to make sure that there's medications available at some point in time to get rid of this disease.
Yes.
You know, so we've been working diligently on quite a few things trying to do that. But advocacy is something that I'm not sure why, again, African American women don't tend to take to it too much. So the last conference that I went to, I was really impressed that we probably had more African American women there who were interested in advocacy than we had in a long time. And so that's really encouraging. That's really encouraging, because what happens is, on a clinical trial basis, there are diseases that was talked about actually in this particular summit that we just came back from, that let us know that African Americans' breast cancers all too often are different cellular-wise from other populations. So when it comes to clinical trials, we need African American women to be in those clinical trials too, because we're having breast cancer that's different from white women, so their disease is not going to prove out for our disease.
Exactly.
You know, so being able to advocate for that, and just being able to serve on the board of directors for the National Breast Cancer Coalition, because it really is a great opportunity for any woman. So I'm hoping that there's an African American woman someplace that's listening to this podcast who will be interested in advocacy, because we need to eradicate breast cancer and stop these really horrible challenges that many African American women face.
I love it. And it is crucial. And it's so important because, like you said, with the Wisconsin Breast Cancer Coalition, like we start here locally. We're doing the work in Advocacy Day in Madison, but it's going to take that next step and that next engagement. And as Bonnie stated, we need to understand that they work for us. We vote them into office. So when we are welcomed into their office, it's literally our voices that are there to make that change. And they need to understand that without us, they could lose their jobs. And we need to realize and come back centered to that, because like you said, we walk into the office nervous, oh my God, what should I say? How should I act or whatever? But in essence, they should be nervous.
And we have made a difference.
Yes.
Doing this for all these years, we've made a difference. We made a difference. We just need to keep up the fight. But we have made a difference. As you know, a lot of medications and things have come directly from the National Breast Cancer Coalition pushing things. So we definitely made a difference.
Which has been wonderful. Bonnie and I also have had the opportunity to work together through Sisters Network, and that is a privilege and a pleasure to be able to have that stage and that platform to be able to share some of the resources. And that was where Bonnie and I originally met. She was tabling for Sisters Affecting Change. And can you just speak a little bit as to how you got involved in that aspect of giving back?
Well, you know, I have actually had an opportunity to attend the National Sister Network's walk quite a few times. So I was always really, really impressed with Sister Network. But until Keisha came along and decided to bring it to this community, which is a wonderful,
love it.
Oh, definitely.
And love her.
The first one that actually has the opportunity to show a program for African American women.
Yes.
You know, it's always been national. It's been going around for a long, long time. I've had the opportunity to meet Karen Jackson several times. So it's been around, but now that it's in this area, and they're doing really good work. I went to one of their programs, and it's always so many women that's really empowering just to see this, that they're finally that there are African American women who really are into trying to figure out how to take care of themselves and how to educate other African American women's relative to breast health and breast cancer.
Yes.
So it's a real great organization. Another organization too, when a woman is in Milwaukee proper is diagnosed with breast cancer, African American woman, we have an African American breast cancer support group that's been around for 34 years or so.
Wow.
So women can come there and we try to make sure that we educate them. If they don't understand their diagnosis, we make sure that we sit with them. We have a doctor, Dr. Lynn, who attends most of our support group meetings.
Nice.
And he'll sit there with them. He's from medical college, a retired physician from medical college.
Wow.
And he'll sit there with them and explain to them what's going on. He'll encourage them, he'll empower them to be able to take care of themselves. So if there's women out there that have had a diagnosis of breast cancer, even if it's 3 years ago, because what happens is, what I think is once you've been diagnosed with breast cancer, you should be even more diligent because that sets you up for a recurrence automatically. It does set you up. You may not have recurrence, but when you look at the risk factors for breast cancer,
Yeah.
the first risk factor is if you had a diagnosis before. That's the first risk factor. So you want to make sure that if you have had breast cancer, the support group is great. We serve a real great lunch every time. We meet the third Saturday of the month at Ebenezer Church of God in Christ. So we make sure, women are there. We fellowship. We have speakers there to educate women about lymphedema, those kind of things that breast cancer
I love
patients challenge. So yeah, if you're out there and you are wondering what you can do for some support, ABCD is a great organization, but so is the Oza Homes African American Breast Cancer Support Group.
Please make certain that you comment if you feel the need, and we'll make certain that we get all these resources and information out there to you. A lot of it will be in our credits as well, but anything that you'd like to come back to or have a question about, please go back to the Pink Table Talk and Bonnie, and we'll make certain that we get that information out there to you. I'm very, very fortunate to be able to have this conversation with you, and just your wealth of knowledge is just impeccable.
Well, thank you. This has been wonderful. I don't know how wealth of knowledge, but I tell you what I do has to be done. That is the thing. Is I do stuff because it needs to be done. We're in this area where we are, so many African American people, and I just love them all. I just love them all. I just want to make sure if a woman is diagnosed with breast cancer, that she's treated the same, that she gets the same treatment that she needs that other populations are getting. And sometimes that you have physician bias. You really do. You sometimes have physician bias. So I just want to make sure, that's why I stay in this. So I'll go to an appointment with the lady if she doesn't understand what's going on with her. We've had to do that quite a few times, so I want to make sure. That's why I stay in this fight. And I'll be here.
But it's so beneficial. I mean, like you were saying, we just came back from Washington, D.C., and we had the opportunity to have 2 new advocates with us.
Yeah.
And the growth that we had and the empowerment that was moved within that room is incredible. And that's a testament to you, Bonnie, because you don't walk in the room as somebody that's been doing this for 30 plus years. You walk in the room as, let me be able to help you, let me make you feel comfortable, engaged, and just within the conversations, people are stepping up and saying, okay, I want to be the secretary and take notes because they want to learn from you.
Yeah.
Or people are like, okay, I want to sit at her table because I want to hear your story, and those are things I can take back, to my home state and be able to learn. And it is truly humbling and a pleasure to be able to sit within that space with you. I know you and I talked about it, off camera, but Bonnie, I just really, really admire all the things that you're doing, and you still walking around here just as beautiful and regal.
I'll be 73 on my birthday.
No.
So,
And it's just a testament of what you bring, to the table, and people need to know that and understand it and being able to look at those resources and figure out how can I be that change, or how can I be able to help, and knowing that you're right here in our hometown.
yeah. And I'm here to help anybody that has any questions about breast health or breast cancer or an organization relative to breast health or breast cancer. Just give me a call, send me an email, and I'm open.
I love it. Thank you again for your time. It was a pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
Again, this is the Pink Perspectives powered by the Pink Table Talk, and it has been a pleasure sharing these stories with Bonnie and all the resources that she has to offer.